All right, we're going to get into our movie review series. That is the No Ticket Required movie series. Let's hit that trailer. All right, and the movie we're talking about this week is from 1994, Blue Chips, starring Nick Nolte, Penny Hardaway, Shaquille O'Neal, and a host of other cameos and appearances.
Yeah.
You'll see it in the credits. You'll see it throughout the entire movie. Also, Mary McDonnell, or McConnell, excuse me.
Yes.
Yep. She's aged like fine wine. Let's just put it that way. I mean, looking back, it's 31 years since that movie was. 32 years since that movie was made, and she looked like she's aged a bit.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, Ryan, one of my notes here says Coach outkicked his coverage.
And she left him.
Yes. But then they were like the weirdest divorced couple of all time because they kept finding their way back to each other and clearly still cared for each other. Sometimes that happens, but that's an aspect of this movie. Let's dive right in.
Dive right in. All right. So I saw this movie when I was a teenager, and it didn't really. I couldn't remember some of it. I remember parts of it here and there. Remember the fact that Shaq was is in the movie, and Penny Hardaway was in the movie. They were professionals by then, which is interesting because they were reprising a college role. But you also have different other players who graduated from college. I think Bobby Hurley was still at Duke when this movie was made. He showed up in an Indiana uniform, and I'm pretty sure he threw up in his mouth when he had to put that uniform on. But this was a movie. But I'm going to let you dive into it, Dustin. I'm not sure if I remember correctly. I remember you said you haven't watched this movie. So were you watching it with fresh eyes?
Well, in a way, I was watching it with fresh eyes, but I've seen this movie. This movie was a movie that I glommed onto in my youth quite a bit, and I have it on DVD. I tried to find it on streaming because I knew the sound quality would be better, but I went with DVD because it was already in my collection. I knew this movie very well at one point, and but I hadn't seen it in probably easily a decade. So I put it on, and let me just say, I'm going to come right out on Front Street with it. This movie, 1994, I was 10 years old. When I believe when they were shooting for it, it was 93, something like that. I don't know how long production took on the movie, but this movie, back when I was a young tyke, to use a word from the 1920s, probably, I really liked basketball. Okay. Basketball was like, I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to be a great shooter. I had a basketball hoop. I was out there. I would talk basketball with my older cousin. We would go out there, shoot baskets and stuff when I saw him. So I was immersed in the world of basketball at this time. So this movie has like a pretty big nostalgic space for me. And that carries this movie for me because I like this movie. There's a lot of cheese that you have to deal with. There's some 90s cringe. Let me tell you, the scene where old Petey Bell, a.k.a. Nick Nolte, is trying to recruit Butch McRae, also known as Penny Hardaway. They put Penny in the credits. Anthony was nowhere to be found. That it was cringy when he's tossing the pillows around and he's like, oh, you're going to have a real fun time with this. You know, I'm going to do lots of Nick Nolte impersonations.
I'm here for it.
I'm
here for it.
But this movie, I liked it. I bought into it for one major reason. I had forgotten how much work, and it's clear, they put into the basketball sequences. They were really playing basketball in those sequences. They had real players. Penny Hardaway, it's funny when you watch the 30 for 30, This Magic Moment, they talk a little bit about blue chips in in the doc, and Shaq said that he called while they were filming it, because by the time the movie came out, both of these gentlemen were in the NBA. But when they were filming it, Penny was still in college, and they were looking at who to draft, and there was a lot of scuttlebutt that they might take Chris Webber.
Yep.
But Shaq, he was shooting with Penny, and he said, "You got to get this guy. He's passing me the ball every time, and it's right there. He's throwing some of the most unbelievable passes I've ever seen." He was vocal with Magic Brass. He said, "You got to work him out. You got to go get this guy." And they were already looking at Penny, but after Shaq was so vocal, I mean, at that point, Shaq's your franchise. So this movie, they did not have a relationship before this movie, I guess. It really started on this movie.
Yeah.
So with that backdrop, but I bought into it because the basketball sequences, they felt, especially for the time, genuine. You had a lot of you had Dick Vitale in there. You had Nick Nolte, who supposedly, I think I read somewhere, his performance was heavily inspired by Bobby Knight. Jeez.
It was.
So
yes, it was.
Pete Bell is wound a little tight. You had Bobby Knight in there himself. You have Sark, the coach, Jerry, what was it? Sarkeesian?
Jerry Sarkeesian.
Yeah, you had Sark in there, and you had a very young-looking Rick Pitino. So it brought some authenticity to this movie, and I think it was because John Singleton, who I think was a producer on this movie, I think he was part of the reason. He did not want the basketball scenes to look cheesy, and to me, they don't. There's a couple of moments, but this movie rang true. I thought Nick Nolte's performance, while it was a little bit over the top, was pretty, it was pretty good. I thought he kind of carries this movie. But also, for me, I'm biased. My love of Shaq shows through even in this movie. Shaq is so charismatic. And Penny does a good job in the movie too. When he comes in and says he's homesick, you believe it. You believe it. And he looks like he's out of water. Now, there's some things that happen around the movie that kind of ding it down. Nick Nolte's Mary, who was it that played Nick Nolte's estranged wife?
Mary McDonald.
McDonald. I was going to say
Mary McConnell.
McConnell. Thank you. I was going to say McCormick. I knew that wasn't right.
Sorry, it's Mary McDonald. God, I keep Mary confused, but Mary McDonald.
Yes. Okay, Mary McDonald. She was also very good in this movie, and the reason that Nolte and McDonald, I believe their relationship, that she especially realizes they can't be together anymore, but they still love each other clearly. But the part where he plays that part where he's addicted to the work, he's trying to watch game film at the house and stuff. We've heard that trope 1,000 times. Yep. This movie does have a lot of tropes in it. You kind of got to get around some of those. You got to get through some of those. And the weakness of this movie is, okay, you're going to have Ricky Rowe, who's also from French Lick, and Larry Bird is in here, and he takes you out to French Lick, and the whole thing. And then you have those sequences. The sequences in French Lick felt the most far-fetched to me. The one in Chicago, I bought when they went to see Butch McRae, and I like how all the other coaches, they're like, oh, we're in trouble because Pete Bell has all these relationships with these guys.
and you see him driving the car, the Grand Marshal in the parade. And you see Pete Bell in front waving to the other coaches.
What? So there's moments in this movie, but there's some stuff you got to get through. I mean, Happy is a little over the top, and Happy's, he has the look of a smarmy, wormy person of ill repute. And of course he is. And then you got Al Bundy, Ed, his name is escaping me. Ed McNeil. Ed O'Neal, and he's also named Ed in the movie. He's the reporter, but
keep his own name.
He has it in for Nick Nolte seemingly, but Nick Nolte's performance and also Shaq carry this movie for me with a heavy dose of nostalgia, because yes, Nick Nolte's over the top, but when you realize he's trying to tap into Bobby Knight, we've seen some of what Bobby Knight did Pete Bell's not too far off. And I believed Pete Bell's stress level a lot more than I believed Sonny's in Draft Day, because this was given some time to build. I do not think this was a slow movie, but they also gave it time to build. But one of the worst names of all time in any movie anywhere, Neon Boudreaux. Shaq's character's name of Neon Boudreaux is one of the cringiest fake names in a movie. So you got to overcome stuff like that if you're going to watch Blue Chips. And if you're watching it with a new pair of eyes, you might not have the same soft spot for it that I do. But with that, Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So I've got a few observations from this movie because I had a really busy weekend. I didn't get a chance to watch the movie, so I kind of listened this afternoon or this morning, excuse me. So I'm gonna have to watch this movie again in the future just to find out how many GD bombs that Nick Nolte drops during the film. Because I think that's his favorite swear. Like any movie that he's in, that's his favorite swear because he says it so well. And he means.
Oh yeah,
he puts a lot of emphasis into it.
Have you heard the Patton Oswalt bit, Ryan? He does an impression because apparently Nick Nolte, they were looking at him to play Han Solo in Star Wars. So can you imagine if that happened?
Nick Nolte is.
Patton Oswalt is just like, Chewie, fix the hyperdrive, but he puts a few other things in there.
They should do an episode 4 remake with Patton Oswalt as Nick Nolte as Han Solo. Right. Yeah, I have to rewatch this movie just because I just need to get the count of how many GD bombs that Nick Nolte drops in this movie.
Oh man, right in the beginning, he probably hits double digits with that.
Oh, for sure, with that sequence where in the locker room he's like, none of you deserve to play. You don't deserve to play college basketball. You don't deserve to be here. Walks out of the room. The coaches come up. All right, guys, this is what we need to do the second half. He comes barging back in. You don't deserve to play here. You're a bunch of losers. Exits. Goes on a rant again. Exits the room. Coaches are like, okay, guys, seriously, let's figure this out. He comes barging back in the room. He just goes nuts. Goes ham banana sandwich. That entire 10-minute, like 5-10 minute sequence in the beginning. But as you noted, Dustin, there are an astounding number of college coach and former college player cameos in this movie. You mentioned Jerry Tarkisian, Tark the Shark from UNLV, and later I'm trying to remember which other college he coached. So anyway, Rick Pitino, Jim Boeheim made a cameo in the movie.
Oh, I didn't catch Boeheim.
Coach Boeheim was in. He's in a couple scenes.
Okay,
he was in that one scene where they were meeting with Father Louis Gossett Jr. I forgot his character name.
Yep.
But he had talked about. I guess he had sent Tony over to play for Western. Wanted to get a hold of Penny's character. I can't remember his name.
Butch
McRae.
Yeah.
Butch McRae. Actually, I looked at IMDb. He is listed in the credits as Anthony Penny Hardaway.
Okay. All right.
Yes. But there's a ton of player cameos, a ton of coach cameos, Rick Pitino, Jim Boeheim, Jerry Tarkisian, Bobby Knight obviously was in it, and that served as the inspiration for Pete Bell in this movie. But there's other ones. I mean, Shaq is obviously one of the main characters in the movie. Penny Hardaway, Matt Nover, formerly of Indiana University. And if you go to his IMDb profile, it's not Matt Nover. It's not a picture of Matt Nover. It's a picture of Shaquille O'Neal as Neon Bordeaux at Western University.
Man.
He probably didn't want him. He probably didn't have a headshot to give to IMDb, so he put that in there. But we had a lot of characters. We had a lot of familiar faces in this movie. Robert Wool plays Marty. He's this kind of the scuzzy agent. Like they're trying to get a hold. He's trying to get these recruits to go to. JT Walsh, who plays Happy,
Yeah.
he's got a punchable face.
Oh, he really does. He
He
really does.
he's in different movies. I don't know if he plays villains. He's definitely got the villain face, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us anymore. So he passed away. He passed away in 1998. Man, he's
Wow.
been
4
gone for a
years
long
after this
time.
movie came out.
Yep. He was in Sling Blade, Needful Things. What else was he in? What other notable movies was he in? Nixon. So he's in some movies, but yeah, like his character had the most was what like the typical 90s sports movie villain,
Oh yeah, for sure.
and
For
the
sure.
friends of the university, friends of the program.
Yeah, friends of the program. That was one of the tropes in there, as you noted. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a few, but yeah,
Friends of the program and happy. I'm
I
happy. I'm
know.
rich. I'm rich, and I got hookers on my every week. But yeah, JT Walsh, you can tell he's just like, I want to punch him in the face. But I'm sure when he was alive, he was a super nice guy. Like,
Oh yeah,
I'm hoping.
probably, and it just shows he was good at his job. You
Yes.
know.
Western University, you could definitely tell they borrowed their colors from UCLA.
Yes.
And like all the colors from UCLA, from the banners to the uniforms. Champion was I saw some product placement. Champion had the uniforms. Pepsi had a lot of product placement in there.
Pepsi, Pepsi was big. They were trying to come for Coke's crown in the 90s, and also Shaq was in Pepsi commercials, so that might have been why they had such a presence in this movie.
Yep. And I couldn't tell. I was looking at the sneakers that everyone was wearing. I could swear that they were Shaq's shoes or some sort of Reebok shoes because I think at the time before he created his own brand, Shaq had a contract with Reebok.
That's correct.
I remember Penny Hardaway in those Nike commercials.
Yes,
Little Penny with Chris Rock voicing Little Penny the puppet.
Yeah, they had competing shoes, and then they had Chris Rock. There was in one of Shaq's Reeboks ads, they had a knockoff of Little Penny, and Shaq knocked him off the couch. That was big. That was big problems. Big problems for the Magic.
That must have been after he went to LA. I suspect
it was before. It was probably like a year before Shaq went, but it was part of the problem because Shaq, and he admits it now. He said, I was in my 20s. I was young and stupid, but when people started to view the Magic as Penny's team, I needed it to be my team. I wanted that meaningless title. I wanted it to be Shaq and the Orlando Magic, not Penny and the Orlando Magic. Because that's how I don't know if they still do it in basketball, but that's how they used to introduce. They used to be like, oh, Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics. They'd take whoever the star was, and it was always that star. Magic Johnson in the Los Angeles Lakers take on, Clyde Drexler in the Portland Trailblazers or whatever.
Right. Let's see what other things. It definitely had a lot of 90s sports movie tropes. Like we've seen a couple of 90s. We've done a couple of 90s sports movies on this channel, on our channel. Last year we did The Program, which was released a year before in 1993. That had a lot of 90s, pure 90s sports movie tropes with the montages and kids sticking money under the table or on the table. And it's just interesting that Shaq is the most moral character of this film. Like he projects himself as this really innocent kid, but he has that streetwise presence, especially during the first couple scenes with Mary McDonnell with Jenny. We talking about the going over the SATs because he scored a 560 because he spelled his name wrong on purpose. He might have done it on purpose.
Yeah,
but she says, all right, what's the nation? What's the country north of the United States? He goes, Spain.
Yeah.
And she says, all right, what's the country below the United States? Canada. And you see him hamming up for the camera. You can tell he was made for the camera. Like him and the camera get along.
Yeah, one of my favorite. It's just a weird little thing, but when she's like, Neon, please please don't hurt the children or whatever she
Please
says.
don't step on the children.
Yeah, please don't step on the children. And he just turns around. He's got like a kid on his shoulder.
Yeah.
He's just like, okay.
That kid's probably is definitely an adult now and probably tells stories. It's just to go to bars to pick up women. Hey, you know I was in Blue Chips, right?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What's Blue Chips? Oh, let me show you the scene. And he's picked up by Shaq and he's getting thrown around by Shaq.
Yeah.
What was that other thing I texted you about? Oh, cultural bias.
Yes.
Why'd you flunk the SAT? Yeah. Why'd you flunk the SAT? Cultural bias.
Yeah, those tests are culturally biased.
And he's going and during the English lesson or lecture he goes, why don't you this class is cultural bias.
Yeah. How about those shorts in that scene, man? They're 90s. They're 90s.
And pull up right to the belly button.
Yeah. And that's why I have such a soft spot for this movie.
Yes.
It is a time capsule. It certainly is a time capsule for me.
Certainly is. But yeah, actually, we're going to wrap up the segment in just a couple minutes or so. But you could kind of tell this was it was definitely a prophecy in some ways, because in college sports today, you got name, image, likeness. You recently had the Supreme Court decision about the back pay to college students, like instead of like getting NIL money, like they had to get paid a certain fee, and now it's basically professional football, but not professional football.
Yeah, teams have GMs now.
Yeah, all these programs have GMs. Like Stanford has Andrew Luck as its football GM, and Woj from formerly of ESPN is now the GM of St. Bonaventure, his alma mater, and you got all these different former players being GMs of their teams, of their where they went to college, or in some cases didn't go to college.
Yeah.
But yeah, these players are going to be paid now, and it just seems to be, it just reminds me of the whole era in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s and 2000s. Yes. Of all these programs being hit with all these violations for either programs knowingly or not knowingly finding out their boosters are paying these kids under the table, like supplying them some extra money. And there was the ESPN 30 for 30 about the Fab Five from Michigan, and Jalen Rose saying, yeah, I can't, you're telling me that, I gotta go to all these classes and I can't afford to go out and I can't get another job. I can't afford to go out and get a pizza with one of my friends on a random night. Like you tell me I can't get some money from a booster just to have some extra spending money because I'm having a full ride, because I'm getting a full ride and full scholarship to go to school and go to class and then go to basketball practice. It's like, we should have gotten this money. And I said, yeah, I definitely agree with them in that point. Like, you're an ambassador of the school you're going to.
Yep.
You deserve a little bit more of a stipend than, say, someone who's not actively being an ambassador of your school.
Yeah, and as much as I hate to do it, it's the one thing I agree with Happy on. He says he yells when Nick Nolte, spoiler, and I give Pete Bell credit for trying to hold out as long as he did, but he finally decides, all right, I got to keep up with the Joneses here, and we got to start paying for players. When Pete Bell says, I don't want you near my players, I don't want you, the whole thing, and he calls him what he calls them. Happy said, these players deserve this money, he said, because they make millions for the school. And what do you get? You get a long-term contract and another deal. And what do they get? They get nothing, which some people would argue they're getting an education, but it's also, is it equal to the amount of revenue those kids are bringing into the school and other recruits? I mean, we could argue that point all day, but you're right, Ryan. I think that part of the reason this movie holds up for me is because it was talking about an issue that happened in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, famously at SMU, and we know some others examples as well. And it continued with the University of Miami and other things that happened after that.
Yep.
And it just seems like you said, you hit the nail on the head. This movie was prophetic.
And it also brought up the it also brought up point shaving, because there was a point shaving scandal in the NCAA in the early 90s with, I believe, Arizona State University.
Yeah. Was it? I think it was it the team that Mike Bibby was on, or was that after?
Interestingly enough, it was during the 1993-94 season while this was being made. Now, I don't know if the paths just crossed, and it just happened to do when we find out that Tony shaved points on purpose because it was paid off by Happy and the friends of the program.
He was failing TV, Ryan. He was desperate.
But apparently point shaving was also, I think point shaving is also a thing in the early 50s too, which with the City College of New York, they had to forfeit a couple of NCAA titles because they were caught in a point shaving scandal. So the paying off kids for their goods and services, the point shaving, getting paid to fix games, it all shows up in the 90s, and you're just like, wow. You're looking back 31 years after it's released now, and you're going, wow, it was practically prophetic. This movie was prophetic with the point shaving and the NIL and giving kids' parents getting stuff to get their kids in the university or convincing them to come to the university. Yeah. So, all right, Dustin, final grade. What does this rank in the 4 movies we've seen so far?
Okay. Now I struggle with this. Because I realize nostalgia and everything plays a big role for me.
Yeah.
But let's see. Seabiscuit is still number 1. So far, I haven't found anything that's going to unseat Seabiscuit. Then this is where I struggle. I struggled between Blue Chips and Mystery Alaska. And I think I'm going to give Blue Chips a slight edge because of nostalgia, just over Mystery Alaska. Though I did enjoy Mystery Alaska, this is where I struggled. And ranking at the bottom for me is still Draft Day. I'm sorry. Anthony can tell me that he'll be here within an hour to yell at me about my ranking of the movie, but Draft Day is last for me right now.
Okay.
How about you, Ryan?
All right. So my number 1 is still Seabiscuit. No debating that. Number 2 for me is still Mystery Alaska.
Okay. Yeah.
And number 3 is Blue Chips because hell, the 90s stereotypes and whatnot, and it was entertaining, but I still need a little bit of that human element that Mystery Alaska had compared to Blue Chips. I mean,
yeah, it did have more, although Nick Nolte's speech at the end really I was with him. I was like, good job for sticking to your guns,
Yeah, it tied everything together for sure. And then in last place, it's Draft Day.
Oh man,
will my picks back?
Draft Day will move up the ranks though, because we have a movie coming.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be
No Holds Barred. Is what we're gonna watch next week.
That's next week already.
That's next week already. We're already halfway. We're at the halfway point next week.
Oh boy,
which is hysterical. But thank you, folks, for sticking around with us. So this has been this edition of No Ticket Required. Where is it? Dang it! There it is.